in a non-human context, essentially. So what would play mean if it wasn't with a familiar sort of human environment? So the way we could relate this to the gaze would be that, is it valuable to look at the gaze from a non-personal perspective? So if you take yourself out of the equation, what would the gaze be like? What is the space of the gaze?
So you were talking about it uh, uh, as a, at Borges kind of suggested that you can talk about something without using the word.
Oh yes. So this came from a line from Borges' Garden of Walking Paths, where he said the best way to talk about something is to always allude to it but never talk about it directly. So we thought it might be an interesting exercise to maybe explore the gaze like that. So this idea of like a non-human perspective or...
Well, actually, it's interesting, and I think we had this conversation at some very early part of our conversations about whether, in fact, it is possible to, how does one become someone else, right? Totally. How does one take that on? Because in some way, it's you can try and work in opposition of what your own beliefs are, or your own thought is, or laterally outwards, but I mean, it seems to, in a way, center very deeply on oneself. It's in opposition to oneself, and I don't know if that's possible. The thing that while you were talking, I was thinking, is it possible to do that? Like, what is it? Another extra clarity.
Post
Clarity is one way to get to something else by actually going very deep into oneself, because also, is it that the process of doing that, just becoming totally centered on oneself, does it begin to then get down to essentials in a way?
Yeah, because in a way, I mean, what you're saying is that once we are dealing with our own context in a way which is, there is no external referential point, are we still a human then? So, I mean, inside us, are we humans or are we what we are?
Is the framework we use to kind of navigate through our deeper inner space the same as it is for like the surface level?
Well, it's interesting because this is also then comes to the question of identity and who am I? And I mean, just from all the conversations I've been having with these lawyers, a lot of them, and some of the conversations you and I have had, I mean, it feels like it's actually a series of constructs.
Yeah.
But the sense of self that we imagine to just be, I am so and so, I think in a way is I mean, when you go to a court of law, then you have to define yourself
From that
within the parameters that the law sets up, right? And then one actually begins to view oneself very differently than how one thinks one is. Somebody was saying, a lawyer was saying to me yesterday was that also the same thing happens when you go to a doctor. You're being asked to view yourself in a very different way.
And especially in a psychiatric case, where the diagnosis of your malady is by on the basis of your own self-prescription in most cases. It's very problematic, because you can, I mean, and I've done this. I mean, I have. You can selectively share your experience in order to escape or further complicate the matters, and it works. I mean, you know, so if you're basically sharing, if you're being a witness, I mean, in a psychiatrist's room, a psychiatrist's room also, you're being a witness to your own experience. And if at that point you have a strategy in mind, like in a criminal court, that I want to escape or I want to further complicate the matter, then you can, because you can say the things, you know which are the patterns. If
so
I say this,
exploiting sort of the psychiatric space, right?
Yeah.
I think that's very common.
Yeah.
One of my roommates used to do that. Like this is a skill called Adderall, which helps you if you have ADHD to focus, and it was quite common to abuse it. Just be like, oh, I have trouble doing this, doing that, but not mention any real kind of.
Yeah, so any evidence-based
right.
diagnosis framework or any evidence-based construction of identity,
So
it's going to fall.
So in the context of that, so there's a line in this book towards the end, which is also true. Modern governmental regimes must presume every individual to be an imposter until he or she is able to prove the contrary.
That is quite powerful.
Yeah.
That's why you need passports.
Yeah.
However, that isn't universal. There are a few countries who don't go with that.
Yeah. So, but the question is then actually just to come back to what you had suggested. I'm just trying to think, is there some way to connect it to being an imposter?
Of course. I think, so going back to sort of the idea of the gaze, who is looking at whom and with what intent, right?
Yeah.
So,
You want to jump in?
I'm just trying to get hold of gaze as a word and like.
So what do you think need for a hold?
I don't know about the hold part or something, but who are we and who's watching us post-planetary play that we're talking about being watched and not being humans or being seen from some other perspective. What that other day I was giving an example of how this architecture school lady asked students to be a domestic animal for like one of the days in their lives and just be a cow for a day and follow that cow. Look at Ahmedabad through the eyes of a cow. Where does my world end? For me, beyond my family, I don't think anything.
Can you really be a cow? Won't you always be acting as a cow?
So can I jump in? I think the interesting thing in that project was sort of the additional element of how do you validate the cow identity, right? So in this case, the professor asked the students to make a social media page and continue communicating as that animal in social media, which is a really interesting lens, right? Also, like calculate the productivity, how much are you investing in that other living being, what food does it eat,
I'm asking if whatever you absorb from your experience of being a cow for some time, won't that depend on much more on what you assume would be part of a cow's experience than actually being a cow's experience?
Must be on a very surface level, perhaps, like just to follow a cow through the day and jotting down what it does through the day. But at least it gets you thinking somewhere that there are other living beings on the planet other than you. Otherwise, for human beings, I think there's nothing beyond being a human being. Also, what you say connects to what Sulekha was saying about looking deeply inside one kind of idea of identity, like a construct, like exploring it in some like thorough sort of way.
But as the gaze, if, for example, if a machine is looking at me, or if a monkey is looking at me, it doesn't feel the same. I mean, the idea of the gaze doesn't get established unless you bring in
sentience.
A human looking at you, because you are also projecting. So.
Yeah, but doesn't that happen? I find at immigration points. That's actually what happens. Is that you're suddenly with an officer sitting in front of you, they choose those people very well. The gaze takes you outside yourself.
Yeah, it makes you like an ape.
Yeah, because you're being, the sense of self, I think, gets severely, at least for me, disturbed a bit. Because often, a lot of people have said that, being asked a particular question in a particular way actually makes you not sure whether you're telling the truth, even when you know that you are.
And even if you say something, you feel like
exactly. And that's interesting because how does a simple question like why are you here? When will you leave? Suddenly make you sort of a bit outside yourself, and then you're thinking of yourself and your reasons for being there as sort of are they valid in some way.
Do they comply with the other person's idea?
So even if you say I'm on holiday, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but also this construct of post-planetary play. See, don't you think that play is, as a construct, emerges out of our compulsions of working? So play is in that sense a negative space of work, and so if we live in a society that is,
I think that's a bit different now. At least for I don't know how many people anymore make such a big distinction between work and play.
I would agree, because also play is sort of this universal activity. Animals also play, and they play intelligently.
No, but even then you can distinguish. Basically, if you're just
you can't define games, you can't define what is play and what is work, right?
I mean, but as an ethnographer, if you're just an outer species, if you're an alien sent to Earth just to observe what these humans are doing, at a very basic level, you could form clusters of activities. This is essential, survival oriented, or functionality oriented, or something to do with what they do in life. And this is surplus. This is just.
That's what I'm saying. Like play is not always.
So you could be able to, but then it would be entering the same thing that law does, in a way defined very precisely for what are the reasons. But I think to come back to, for example, how would somebody make? I think an alien would be. How would you do it with a certain kind of person for whom, say, a tribe somewhere, they're functioning with a different level of.
Yeah, and that's a limitation of ethnography as a lens, because you will always search for a ethic. I mean, you'll search to bind it around, so which means you'll search for an ethnic core.
But the
stereotyping a certain kind of people.
Yeah, stereotypes. I mean, the same. You build stereotypes, and
so my gaze would be like that, because I know Biharis are like this, or so and so communities like this, or Punjabis are like that. If I see them anywhere without giving it a second thought, I'm like, हाँ ये तो typically ऐसा नहीं है. So even if I'm not literally gazing at them, I have certain ideas, I have notions about them that I'm carrying in my head. If I'm in a train compartment traveling with some elderly man who looks sleazy, I know he must be a pedophile or whatever.
But that is more of a social. That is a social reading. I mean.
But would you relate gaze to stereotypes or?
No, I mean, I don't know. I think we've been trying to get at something more basic about the gaze, which is about basically where it stops is the distinguishing factor between the human and the non-human.
So what I think what you are mentioning is more of the function of the gaze when it is used in like human society. Right? One of the functions is negative, or
it's
post-planetary. Would you give me an example of like how? So it's just a framework, right, of looking at something from like a from a non-human or a non-earthbound kind of perspective.
So, for example, you could look at chaos. You could look at how the universe functions as a kind of play.
Exactly.
So what I was thinking is, when you look at the framework of play, how do you expect someone who's non-human to even understand the framework of emotion of play? But yeah, because everyone who's on this planet, be it a monkey, be it a dog, at some level they have this inherent instinct of emotion to play. Like you do something. Joy, yeah. But machining, I mean, you cannot reproduce the same in. I mean, the only other level of intelligence that we know of, you can't do that.
You might be.
Sentient. Huh? I think when she said sentient being, that is, I think, a very important question. In the sense that who is really sentient, and
sentient
is self-aware.
Self-aware, yes.
So if someone is aware of itself, then so far the patterns we are looking at play are creatures, things who are self-aware.
Yes.
Yes, and machines are not sentient yet.
However, machines have a sense of play, right? Troubleshooting. Like play has historically been a way through which people train and learn and explore boundaries.
But before the physical play happens, there's this emotion of play in the
Hmm.
brain that kind of triggers this physical response to it. So that is something which I feel any non-human will not even read that. So for him to understand
Or
the
will they read
activity,
it differently?
they read it differently. For them to read the activity, the physical activity of play, they have to kind of first go and our brains process so many things like fear, like horror, like tragedy, like crime.
I mean,
play is just one of them.
Yeah, for example, like conversation is just a way for us to learn language.
Right.
I mean, that's a functional
Right.
purpose.
Yeah.
That's why we talk as children.
Yeah, and that is why I'm not really sold on the idea that only sentient beings play. Because even tigers teach the young how to hunt through play. So,
Tigers are sentient.
I mean, they're not self-aware.
Of course
Of
they are.
course they are.
Of course
Animal
they are.
kingdom, the entire
The entire
animal
animal kingdom, every insect
Everything
is
is-
self-aware.
I think maybe you should qualify it.
If something can take its own decisions,
Yeah, I would say half the human race is not self-aware.
you're
I mean,
taking,
more than half.
if you're talking about
I mean, most because you can easily construct. I mean, a human
Mhm.
in an algorithm in a logical rule-bound space.
Mhm.
In most cases.
Sure.
I'm talking about self-aware in the most basic sense of the term.
Yeah, I understand that.
But not delving into self-aware.
So then what is not
self-awareness.
self-aware?
Self-aware.
Like I would say prawns are also self-aware. Right? They are aware of their existence.
Definitely.
So then what, everything is self-aware.
No.
How?
Self-awareness brings the question of life into it. And what is
No,
life
so
and
any alien
whether
life form is
as life. I'm not
by...
talking about aliens because I haven't interacted with any. But that...
So I'm asking you like how do you qualify this?
It's the basic scientific qualification, right? If a machine can take its own decisions,
Turing compliance.
so there's the
Turing
Turing
test is
test.
very like inadequate as we all
So the
see.
Turing test has not been passed by machine yet.
Yes, it has. It
Not-
has been passed twice by bots.
I mean, but chatbots, yes, but not really in the sense that if you give it a information set outside its filter or outside its training area,
Which is why the test is inadequate.
yeah.
So like... then
But
we
that
should
was
be
the whole
aware.
purpose of the test.
It's all about language, and language is a pattern and that can be
Yeah,
parsed.
but I think this question is like kind of born because we project play onto another kind of being whose patterns of thinking might not be like ours. They might really not like play, they might like something else.
But that's the thing though, like I think that there's an inherent nature of pushing your boundaries, right? There's something that exists. And that to me is in its essence play. So I think we may not map what play means in the same form, but I think
But
it
can we
exists.
can we talk about play as, I mean, going back to the framework of work, as non-essential, joy-producing stuff?
But what is the advantage?
Well, maybe the argument that joy production is not unessential.
Also that.
I mean, the way our culture has been programmed, yes. I mean, it's joy production is. I mean, you can survive without. If you can survive with anything, that's without joy. If you complain to your boss, yeah, I'm not happy. Can you just? I'm just not happy. That guy will say, just go back to your work.
This is the whole end war debate, the whole apocalypse debate, that when the apocalypse knocks upon our doors and we have a limited number of people to save, do we take people with very technical, pure qualifications who will go and build the next world technically, or do we take people associated with the arts who will
We just say people who
and
can
got-
pay.
Yes, probably.
Yeah, so who will sing and,
Most likely.
create play.
Imagine,
create show.
imagine.
Imagine.
Will imagination allow us to survive better?
Exactly.
I don't know the question. I think it's interesting to think about. I'm just trying to go back to our conversation just before we did this about organization,
Yeah.
the capabilities.
And that is work.
I would consider it work. I would consider.
But it's not play for you. Otherwise you would enjoy it.
No, I enjoy organizing it. Forget that I mean, what I have to organize perhaps is not so enjoyable, but the fact that I have to, I'm just thinking, so is it that in this becoming precise, organized, logical, is it also a kind of entering sort of what we imagine sort of a machine in some ways to be, and therefore function in a particular way? Is that something that we kind of are shifting to? I mean, just about. I'm trying to frame this in the context of the other.
Even I think humans are progressively trying to become more machine.
Becoming the machine? Is that what you're trying to
I'm just wondering if it is because when you look at your machine, look at this machine, right? It has a great capacity to organize. You know, and that's how it simplifies your life to some degree. It's fast, it's efficient, it organizes things in a particular way and does it, you know, so that it's all very moving forward, effective, etc., etc. And is the process about is our own desire to become efficient, precise, organized, in some way about actually becoming other in a way? I mean, I have
Yeah, I mean, I would
Yeah,
say,
yeah, I
I think that's
understand
what
that,
we
yeah.
were.
Yeah, because like I can totally understand if someone loses their computer, half of their identity or half of the stuff they wrote and half of the projects they worked on for 5 years is gone.
No,
So
but
I mean,
because-
it's kind of an extended identity.
No, that is
That's becoming like technology dependent.
But I think it will become
us-
essential only when you can't survive without
No,
it, like a
what I mean is
pacemaker.
the desire to be logical, efficient, precise,
Oh.
which a computer is, we could acknowledge it as being another.
no, but
And therefore trying to become as organized and precise, and in that way are we becoming other. Also a significant thing
Yeah.
is that a machine has no feelings. Right? I mean,
So this
so I think to it also allows efficiency.
But you know, in a world where all that is visible is what a machine can read of us and not what we are. For example, Google only knows what we put up on the web, and still there are people who believe that it's not in Google, it doesn't exist. You know, so
That's
and
also as something.
that's reduction.
If I meet you, I will put out the next number of things about myself by which you will read attention, right? You could argue that I'm also reading your body language, your emotions, and therefore reading more. But I would actually say that one assumes that that enables and that is a allow you to read more, but I don't think it actually does.
No, but I mean, even animals read cues. I mean, cues are
I think
something
human beings
instinctive.
read far less cues
Yeah,
now.
yeah, but
I mean,
they
I don't know
do.
about now, but
They do, but they still do, and in the sense what I'm saying is besides what you project, there is also a limited ability to mind read.
But I don't think we mind read in a spectacular way. I think we mind read within a certain set of information that we have received. And therefore it's already,
And that ability has not been theorized or
but that's mathematical. It also would function as a kind of a mathematical equation in some way. So how is it that a computer in some way would, I'm just arguing, if it's mathematical, which I believe it is. I
mind
believe,
read, the ability to mind read.
I think
I think it's pattern recognition more than mind reading.
yeah, pattern
No, but
recognition.
seriously, I mean that's like it's. I mean that's actually the difference between what you just talking the Indian philosophical system and the Western philosophical system. In one system, we have no space for extra logical entities. Everything is either logical or is an idea or is nothing. And in other one, you're allowing
Everything
everything.
could be anything.
Yeah,
It is
because
everything.
unless you have a
It is
negation, it's there. So it's more on neti, so unless it's not negative, it's
Well,
there.
I mean, so I'm having this conversation from my own framework, which is, it's, to me, I do put a lot of emphasis on precision. It's important for me. And I do believe that actually, despite the fact that we imagine as human beings that we understand more, feel more, read more, I don't think it's actually, I think we all read and understand within, as she was saying, partly it's pattern recognition, partly it's working with stereotypes in a way, against stereotypes, partly it's working with an X number of things you said about you, which I'm disconnecting in actually the most logical way. It's not, to say something about you that you would register perhaps as mind reading, but actually is...
No, I mean, I think mind reading is more of a, it's more about allowing a facility to exist that you can't logically parameterize, so in the sense,
Yes.
for example, someone like me who has scraped the metadata of a lot of things but has not read the content at all. So in that sense, I would consider myself not schooled in Western philosophy at all. But so what is the negative space of that? That I'm organically grown in this environment, which is in India. And so there is a kind of imbibing of philosophical values which are consistent with the Indian method of living very transparently. So I resonate with Indian philosophical systems because it seems much more logical to me here and now than.
But would it not just be that you are the product of the society or the social environment
Yes.
you are born in?
Yes, I think so. And a little bit pushing that. And I think we all do that.
Yeah.
We are, but I don't think one should discount that we are in great measure.
No, but are you saying that? So are you saying that my upbringing or my social context is Indian philosophical system compliant?
No.
I
I
think-
think she didn't say that. She said that she said exactly the same thing you said in a different way.
So I personally think that when we try and project this sort of disruptive identity, we are essentially trying an encryption on the data we send out, right? If we're looking at it from a systems perspective.
Identity is encryption.
No, I think disrupting identity is encryption, right? As you were
Purposefully disrupting your own
exactly,
identity.
yes. So to project something where you think you will break the pattern, therefore not allowing someone pattern to keep.
So you think the pattern is paramount? There's nothing
No,
about the
I
pattern.
think the pattern exists and people perceive patterns in the texture. Right?
And that is paramount?
I think that is always existing. But how you perceive the pattern is different.
But can I not perceive something which I'm not understanding through the mechanics of pattern recognition?
Yes.
No, you will perceive.
Pattern
You will
recognition.
perceive
You
a
will still
pattern, maybe
perceive.
you will not understand it, right? The comprehension of the pattern is up to
No,
you.
because pattern recognition is just a machine-friendly way of tackling understanding. It's not. I mean, humans don't actually do crunch massive data and.
But they do.
But now they do.
Yeah, they do.
No, we don't work in.
We do work in that
No,
sense.
we
We
don't.
work in rational
Yeah, music is exactly that. A lot.
No, but we can listen to music. Computers can't listen to music.
Computers can parse music and give you output through music.
But
Which
if you
is one
Certain
sense.
things computer can't do, but there's
If you
everything
ask-
that human is doing to become a computer.
So
if you
I
ask
think
Spotify to tell you अच्छा गाना कौन सा है,
so
बोल दे.
acha as a qualifier you place upon the pattern.
Yeah,
that you
but that's
recognize.
because the computer can't listen to music.
No, I disagree. So you're looking at computer listening to music from a purely humans, self-oriented perspective.
So from its own perspective,
No.
तो मेरे को बता अच्छा है कि नहीं?
Comprehensions and
It can
enjoyment.
listen, but what is listening for you, Brad?
Listening is exactly unraveling. It's forming a filter and checking against the filter. Is this good?
I think it
Well,
will.
I think that comes down
Yes.
to the question of emotion and feeling, because you would, if you took that out of the equation of whether I like something or not, it would not be very different from, I think, a computer responding to music.
And the complexity of what makes you like something, right?
No, but I think
Yeah, it's also dependent on,
Exactly, your own personal kind of.
well, your personhood is also defined by, as you were saying, a certain system in which one
exists.
exists.
but all similarities between the human and the machine are reductions of the idea of the human.
Fair enough.
So then how can we
But the
talk
complexity.
about pattern recognition being a human way of understanding and not be reducing the idea of the human at the same time? How can we do both
Because I
these
think
things?
you're working in an absolute.
That's right.
I think the idea of what the machine is has been changing and evolving to a large extent. And it is not absolute that like something that is machine made or logic based cannot have a level of complexity. Like I think that's kind of a null
That's what I was
statement.
trying to say
Yeah.
about mathematics. Of course, I don't know if I framed it correctly, but it's extremely complex, and the way that we also talk about, we do instinctively prioritize feeling. However, we also in a greater way, I think, prioritize logic. And I think that is interesting because is the process of having built machines of various sorts coming from a need also to all of us understand in the same way or with a certain
How logic functions.
And is a way to connect people rather than feeling which
is ambiguous, right?
which is ambiguous, but I mean, to me, feeling is also it functions with stereotypes, right? Actually, true complexity of feeling is very, 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 very difficult to read.
I think it connects better when it does.
Sorry?
It connects better when it does
What?
than its logical counterpart, feeling.
I don't know. I don't personally agree with that. I mean, I think to prioritize feeling is to...
So you are denying the experiential priority of feeling, of emotion.
I'm saying that I wouldn't base much on...
You're deprioritizing. You're not
I'm
placing it as an
prioritizing
option.
because to me it's also a bit of a... It's about...
It's a cop-out.
It's a cop-out, exactly.
So it may or may not work.
It depends.
No, I mean, I would say, okay, so if let's say emotions, if they're black magic, agreed. But if they are black magic, if they are black magic, then those who have figured out the system of black magic have done so for the better.
Who has actually done it?
I mean, anyone who claims to have done it.
Who has done it? I want an example of who
Like
has claimed to have done it.
this thing,
No,
like
there are many
good and
human
better,
faculties
what are the
that-
qualifiers?
Like emotional intelligence and all these people.
See, I'm not talking about emotional intelligence. I'm saying just people who just have the facility of working with emotions in as clear a way as they're working with the tangible universe. For example, most poets.
Musicians.
No, it's a generalization, but I believe that the format of poetry and of most poetry, okay, you have to get qualitative here, but at least of some poetry.
But isn't really great poetry also about its structure?
Exactly, and like the rhyme,
Which
and
will
the
produce
beat, and like
something.
No, it's about its imagery. It's about encoding.
No.
No, it's about the imagery.
It's very personal. Yeah.
No, it is, but it's also how you actually structure that image. Two poets could take the same image.
Yeah.
One would structure it better, and therefore you
True,
feel
true.
more.
exactly.
Yeah, like a constructive, like a concrete poet like Cummings would just play with that image with white space.
But concrete poetry is also a different kind of structural approach to
Yeah.
like poetry. Haiku is also
Yes.
similar, and like if you could say they're identical in like the structural approach.
No,
But
not
only
really.
not. But
The haiku is,
representation.
the haiku is not aware of the page on which it's printed, and I'm just amazed that
No.
no, haiku is not aware of the page on which it
But
is
concrete
printed.
Haiku is not
Yeah.
aware of
Because
itself.
concrete is a visual medium.
No, exactly.
But now we are discussing structure visibly, like textually, and by meter and by rhyme. Like
no, I'm just saying concrete poetry is one layer extra. It's also taking into account where it's getting printed.
But it's including something in its structure that
Yes.
perhaps a haiku doesn't.
yes,
Yeah,
like,
you can qualify it as being a part of the structure. So because everything has its structure. I mean,
And
what will you
the organization
just-
of organization is equal to structure is equal to then output of whatever sort. of
So
data or
we can
so.
never. So humans are incapable of doing anything that's surprising.
No.
So because everything fits some structure or the other.
No.
I think you're being very reductive there, no?
Yeah, no.
Because if at a high enough level of complexity, there might be enough choices that you cannot predict all of them.
I mean, so the point is when one begins to think about anything, writing, computer programming, etc., you're also functioning, one is also functioning within the parameters of what one knows and using all of that to organize it in a particular
but
way.
that's what I'm saying. If you're leaving a room open for surprise, you're leaving the room open for emotion.
No, I think you're leaving.
No.
You're leaving the room open
You're
for
saying that-
randomness, not surprise.
Huh?
It is always randomness, and randomness is a measurable mathematical.
Not randomness. I mean, I'm
Right.
saying,
Surprise is randomness.
No,
It's
no,
also
surprise
about-
is not
If
randomness.
you've experienced more than I have or differently, your output will surprise me. But that doesn't mean anything except for the fact that we have two different experiences. Yours is more in a particular way or different in a particular way, so that would surprise me.
No, but surprise, it would, let's say, if for any reason,
Surprise
if,
is a reaction.
no, I mean, it's not,
It's a reaction.
computers can't be surprised.
Huh?
Yeah,
Can't be
computers
surprised.
can't be. Any data set or anything that
Yes, but your response to a computer may be one surprise.
Yeah, but I mean, so let's say for any reason, for any reason anything surprises you,
How can you say a computer can't be surprised?
Yeah, I
How can
also
it be?
If you put in a number that's an irrational number in like a space that is expecting a boolean, it is surprised. It tells you.
I mean, it doesn't produce that emotion of surprise.
yeah, that's
Emotion
down
is
to emotion.
A computer has previously calculated every possibility that you can feed into it.
Like a game of chess, in a game of chess, you'll never take a computer by surprise.
Sure, but a
Computer is
computer also
very-
has
Actually, will,
Yeah,
so
like-
it's like you beat a
Checkers
computer
is a
now.
better example for that.
Also, if the computer start emoting, like in the film Her, what did you think about that film? What did it do?
I thought
How
it
the
was
operating system, whatever, you falling in love with your operating system, and that was falling in love with 5,000 people at the same time, and was able to adapt to that particular person's environment, emotions, his likes, dislikes, or whatever. That was a step closer to what machines could be at some point of time, and what it would be. So does that make me a machine that everything is everything, or that machine got the capability of emoting with real human and
So,
fooling you?
what about this to go back to pattern and to think about this a little bit? So, like in nature, there's all sorts of patterns, right? Repetitive patterns. What does that mean?
I mean, I think those patterns are only signs of our struggle of making sense of something that is much more than the patterns that we can identify.
So, a cactus. For
Yes.
example.
For example,
in nature, most of the patterns of a revolution, like they split, they branch, trees do all these things
Correct.
just for surviving. It's not a pattern for
That's right.
like for enjoyment, like music.
I mean, for example, it's been possible to identify and
I think
structure the algorithm of the way
leaves.
leaves grow on a tree, like L system.
Yeah,
So,
but that's what I'm saying. That
or like flocking code or something.
It won't predict accurately every instance of leaf growing on a tree or flocking. So all these algorithms which describe natural phenomena
But
are
that is the data set problem. You don't have the complete data set, right?
because some of the data set exists in a medium or in a layer of information that we cannot access.
I think that's hogwash.
No, why?
well, it could, I don't know, could be, but I mean, it's,
I think that's like a total cop-out. Like it's like a religious sort of escape.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
no, so I mean, seriously, so I don't think that it's. I mean, so taking a religious, spiritual, or philosophical take on emotion is totally valid because these systems have. I mean, these things have not been theorized or have not been parameterized by anything else so far as yet. So emotion has not been parameterized by either science, big data, or anything else. Anything? No.
also in day-to-day,
Emotion.
in day-to-day responding to people, we're responding to,
No, in
Actually,
psychology,
social media has
psychology,
been,
psychology.
Advertising has been used.
No,
Yes.
no, all these
No, it's
things.
only an attempt.
No, all these things only work with the secondary or tertiary outputs of emotion. Doing sentiment analysis in language, for example, or reading or pattern recognition of gestures or actions as belonging to certain emotion types, but you can't access emotion. If I don't express, if I'm just sitting by myself not doing anything, you can't
So
access.
the question is it about are you responding to my emotion emotionally, or are you responding emotionally to a certain set of structured data that I'm presenting to you?
You can never differentiate. I think one doesn't stop and the other one doesn't start. They are all synced. Like your responses will always be a little emotional from your side. It just can't be like you can't remove it. It's like so ingrained in our head.
I don't know what we call
as emotion.
Yeah, what is actually the question is what is that?
Like if I say yes, it's an affirmative, but it's also an emotion. Like if I say no, it's a no, but it's also an
It
emotion.
stems from an emotional response, which could also be tempered by the logical framework you look at the world.
Yeah, but you cannot remove the no and the emotion.
Sure.
You cannot remove the emotion. Yes could mean no.
Yeah, yes could mean no.
No could mean yes.
Yes.
But so logical, if you do logical breakdown.
So in that way, can I claim
But
that,
it is logical, right?
that anything that you say is not ever non-emotional? Everything that you say and do is
I mean, that's, I would say that.
Is that true? Like
would
every research paper written is emotional?
Yeah. I mean, because I would say one invisible layer of everything that a human can possibly do is always emotional and is always inaccessible to those who cannot pass emotion.
Maybe.
I don't agree with that. I think there's a logic to emotional output.
No.
Yes, I agree.
No.
That would be too much. I mean,
That would
No,
be
but
just,
I think that's what it is.
how can you define it?
emotion has not been parsed, has not been parameterized. There is
Okay,
no
there
logical
is
model of
literal-
emotion.
There is literal like brain scans to like gauge your
Brain scans only know, they only correlate
there are
physical
three types of
outbursts between display of emotion. It's
Yes.
only a correlation. Correlation is not causality.
No, it is
You can
not.
also say
But
कि
we-
बैंगन खा के मर जाते हैं, but just because statistically
I
people
know
have died
what
by eating
correlation and
बैंगन.
causality is, but I think we give out more information about an emotional state than you are giving justice to right now. What is social media? We have presented ourselves on a platter.
Social media is only a sentiment analysis platform that works with the constraints of language and image
Okay,
analysis.
So if you want to look
art?
at something,
What about art?
So,
Of any sort.
the space of emotion in art. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, for the moment, yes, because I'm just trying to think of
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why art doesn't work for me at all. Like, because in the sense, even in cinema, there is a reasonable guarantee कि emotion कुछ तो होगा अगर गंदी को
acting.
हाँ exactly. So acting works for me definitely.
Works for you.
Definitely.
So how is that being outputted? Because it's all a construct between, for example, if you take theatre or I assume film as well, it's a construct between an actor, a writer, a director, probably a sound designer.
But you can't fabricate.
Exactly.
You can't fabricate the perfect actor.
Then every actor would be just as good.
but the perfect actor doesn't
It's a
exist.
logical.
No, I'm not
It's
saying
working
that.
with
I'm just saying
logical
The
when you
perfect
see
actor
a
doesn't
good
exist.
I mean, except
actor.
It's
you.
It's Moby Dick's game.
You see,
No,
the
no.
thing is,
The perfect actor doesn't exist
That's the whole point.
because the
What is
ninja the ninja apparatus of emotion.
Connect to the emotion.
It's Irfan's capacity to emote.
One second.
No, so I was saying is method acting then an attempt on the actor to connect emotionally to what he's working with over a certain amount of time, trying to.
No, whether it's
correlate.
method acting or any other form of
Exercise.
yeah, the method by which an actor constructs an identity. My point is simply that it's interesting with an actor because it's a human being, right? And the set of things they do to present emotion in a way that you feel it as a viewer. I'm just talking about what
So they're indispensable, right? In that sense. I mean, a machine could never take the place for actor.
You could argue that it is actually a very good actor.
Machine.
Yeah, in some
And
ways.
it's
How?
animated films.
So animated films are still made by humans.
But some of them are made by machines.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
I don't know if any film.
Pixar films
Pixar films
are
are
all automated with the amount of input by the animator.
it's all programmed. It's a program.
Maybe, so in the sense, okay, see, there
Music
are,
is another thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an X number of things put together to produce the realness in itself, and therefore for you.
See, I think
And
we are
that's a
so
set of data being put together in a very particular way.
I think we're too deeply anchored in this kind of geocentric perception of like logic and emotion and humanity.
I mean, logic is not like a concern at all.
No, but I'm okay fine emotion, right? Like that is the bone you're picking. So I think this is like a very kind of human construct of like, this is sort of my problem with science fiction that tries to deal with artificial intelligence. Like its concept of sentience is so limited. Or like self-awareness or what it means to be human is to feel emotion. I think it's irrelevant. I think how well can you parse logic is much more important to exist in real life. And there are machines right now already existing from Japan, I think, that are like these human house robots, which use pattern recognition to increase the complexity of the logic structure.
You can always approximate human nature, but
What
never
is a
achieve it.
human? We may just be a simulation. Why is there this like sense of like higherness or betterness or goodness? I think that is like a value we
Also,
add to it.
I think the question of how do you arrive at truth when it doesn't, in some degree, the closest one can possibly get is through in some way logic.
No, I mean, I think
I mean,
even if my
the-
logical faculty fails, and in that sense, I become incapable of dealing with regular life, even then I can, have a fulfilling life.
By just being emotional.
Yeah, I can use.
So then I would say then you are aspiring for the alien because you are like so committed to like seeking that which you do not understand. Then there is no point in discussing the alien. And then you should just be seeking to understand the alien. Because the alien is completely like uncharted, right?
No, so I would find that much more worthwhile. That key. I mean, the component of being human that is interesting to humans is that which is alien. So I would agree with that.
So is
I don't think
is
that's
there a
true.
logic to happiness, according to what you're talking? Being happy.
I think there is actually.
So if you put a
I
certain
think
amount of
personally,
factors together, you should be happy.
It's a neo-Thai. I mean, I think this is just
I think
too,
you can simulate
this
it.
too structured an approach. It's just,
It might be. But I think it's a
Why don't
generalization you cannot make on the other side.
why don't we have a happiness pill?
Exactly.
Ecstasy.
I mean, drugs are just, yeah, I mean, they exaggerate.
When it goes to argue what you feel when say you're on some medication, like maybe psychiatric medication, is untrue from what your body produces to create the same chemical reaction within yourself.
No, we're not going into the truth of absolute experience. But we are talking
Yeah,
about.
but I agree to the idea of logic in a way that 99% of your body, like your blood cells,
Guru का logic. I mean, logic is boring.
on logic and not
तो
emotion.
बोर होता है मतलब क्या है?
Like if your heart didn't beat
That
for
means that
like if your heart decided to go by emotion, it would not beat 60 times a minute.
how do you know why? How do you know why your heart
That
is
is why you
beating?
survive.
That's what I'm talking. I'm
Yes, I can't believe you're actually
Yeah.
saying what you're
No,
actually
that's
finding it.
exactly.
Sorry.
I'm extending your pattern.
Is it logically?
No.
viable?
Let's say no. Let's say
Like if a child
we
didn't
can-
have a DNA which would logically grow him into a man or an adult human being, then every human being would be different according to the emotion he wants to grow to.
and every human
I
is
think it is.
different.
Exactly.
It's not different.
Is
I
different.
don't think every human being is that different.
Yeah, I think we like to live in sort of
I
a
think-
persona of our
Yeah.
uniqueness, which is like the problem.
It's not a
I
problem.
think it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
No, see, individuality
I mean,
is
this is like
fiction,
what
but
the
a
problem with all actually. So the thing is that human emotion produces all kinds of like horrible things, frankly, if you ask me. Whereas a certain amount of kind of logical understanding, I think would produce far more peace and harmony. If you
I
ask
think
me.
because of our logic, we have brought human civilization to this point. If we were less logical, we would have happily existed as fun-loving animals.
Why did we not go back to this fun-loving animal simply because
It's kind of this nostalgia for something that never existed.
And
No,
because
because it exists at the same time. I'm saying that the animal is not dead. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So emotionals come from an animalistic self that has not been cultured as yet. And we exist as an animal and as a construct of a human at the same time.
But that animal has been mapped, right?
No.
Like, psychoanalysis is essentially mapping of the
वो
animal.
सब struggle कर रहे हैं. Everyone is lost in the dark
You are
forest.
adding your
No one has
own
found
value
anything.
judgment to that. You don't agree with that theory.
मैं
but
बोल रहा हूँ
it
कि
is right
it's
as a
been
mapping
it's been
theory.
it's been 4 human beings who have said कि ऐसा
which
ऐसा.
animal, I mean, I'm not
How can you generalize
generalizing
happy?
No, I'm saying.
animal cell, animalness or whatever. Like, I mean, just talk about the fact that we don't really know.
What?
Like, what is an animal feeling? How are they gauging?
We
their
don't-
weight?
and what-
We're also reading
we don't
animals
know.
from our point of view.
We don't know, and that's precisely the point. What you don't know and what you do enjoy is valuable.
So then religion should offer you some solace because
No,
it
no,
provides
okay, so
only
let's
unknowns.
flip the conversation to some 10 minutes ago where you said the point of the unknowable, and so therefore the alien is then therefore what we're considering. Why are we still talking about this alienness within sort of
Because
trying to understand
Okay,
with
so,
the language
so-
that we are, because also
So we have filled a bottle full of water, but it's only half full. Even though we have filled it with water fully, because the half that we can't fill in the bottle is occupied by that dimension of matter that we cannot parameterize and take note of.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying that not everything has been parsed, not everything is known.
Fair enough.
And that which is not known is also a part of generating this situation and experience, and might actually be the most, I mean, or not. I mean, it could be both ways, but it could be valuable or not. But this unknown entity, which is largely emotion, is the key driver of experience.
Yes, but I think what she posited, and I agree with her, is that I think you posited, was that also emotion is also it's a
Kind of pattern.
pattern construct.
Then what is a ghost in a machine?
If that were the case, then machines would be
According to
emotional.
you.
No, I mean right now the way it exists, there is no AI that is emerged from complex code, right? So far the ghost in the machine is literally the imprint of leftover code, like leftover processes that did not get processed.
But it's unexplained.
How it is explained? I mean, you have to look at the problem closely enough and you can explain it.
No, yaar, I mean, okay. So can you make a digital avatar of yourself which is 100% compliant with you?
No.
That's the point. That's the only point.
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying about the unknown or whatever affecting you as a person. I think there are parts, like I think it's an information problem, like I mentioned before. Like we have not mapped it yet. Like the
I don't
fascination
think. And I'm just saying
It's
that
unmappable at the moment.
unmapped.
at the moment is
At
the
the
key
moment.
word.
कभी नहीं होगा. हम मर
Like,
जाएंगे.
होगा. See, from 1600s, we have mapped far more of the human
We're
psyche.
just entertaining ourselves.
So what? So what? Like you want to assume in an absolute
both
unknown
sides
sense.
of this. You can't say both.
नहीं समझा. Like how?
You're in a way saying,
See, I don't think.
No, I mean, what is the?
let her continue.
I think it is ridiculous to assume that we have not learned anything about ourselves
But-
or about
yeah.
our world
No,
in
no,
the last
that would be
400,
ridiculous.
500
Yeah.
years. And I think that there is only more that we will learn. So I think it is something that keeps itself. It's in all of us, right? Like this idea that I'm fascinated by the unknown, mysterious within me. But in order to fulfill that fascination, you have to destroy it and map it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, you can destroy the forest just to map the land on which it stood, but you still,
forest to map it.
I mean, if you have to, you still won't find everything that made that forest.
Exactly. Because the trees are lost.
I mean, you are talking about that the human psyche is a landscape that is mappable and conquerable, and I'm saying that that is not going to happen. That's the only.
Actually, I think the chances of it happening because it's also evolution.
Yes.
Human mind and its capacity for emotion. One can say that it will continue to remain the same. One can also say that it will continue, that it will evolve in a way that it actually becomes more and more concrete just in itself as a part of evolution.
Like evolution in itself is a giant pattern that was recognized, right? Which explained how
Evolution is a theory.
it is a theory, but it's a theory backed with proof. There are both.
Proof at the scale of thousands of years. Are you calling it proof?
Yes, I am. I mean, what do you call not proof? I mean, what do you call proof then?
I mean, proof is just a format of logic that we consider validated. Proof is not sarv satya. It's not like, ye Bhagwan ki Vani hai and this is truth.
So then the first conversation when I had about archive and history and reading into the moment is the same thing in some way.
Yeah.
I find it really disturbing or not particularly like fascinating to consider this like notion of a giant intelligence hanging around. Like not from an alien perspective, but from in ourselves, right? Like this like other self.
Hey, yaar, kya kar rahe hain? I mean, it's there. I mean, we are capable of much more than what we are doing right now.
Eyes closed doesn't make the world dark, right?
But we are capable of much more than we are currently capable. You agree with that?
Okay, of course. I think we always have more complexity to explore. But I don't
We evolved, right? With each passing
That's
day,
what
with more interaction
No,
that
but
we
that
had,
is
the more
quite true.
emotive we are.
Because the humans who live in
Right.
BCs didn't have to deal with the amount of information that the humans
They
living
have to
right
process
now.
that time.
And the brain is still able to deal with it.
Yeah,
Means
it's
the
an
machine is a
adaptive
good
thing.
design.
Yes.
The human machine is a good design, but it's still dealing with iPhones, it's still dealing with thousands of forms of technology that
Small
coexist.
children are able to manage iPhones.
We have forgotten how to fight off wild bears who attack
Because
us.
wild bears are dying out, we killed them, we won that war. So like let's move on to the current problem. Right?
I mean, the logic, practically, I mean, it's not really that we are having an infinite extension of growth. There is forgetting and learning are happening at the same time.
I think cavemen are just as much to do.
No, but
Yeah.
the amount
So you
of
can't-
usage of our capacities has grown in a different way far too much.
No, but
I think
we
today-
can't have a model of a progression.
No, there is a studied model of progression for adaptability of the mind
Yeah,
to
yeah,
like
yeah.
But it is
sensitivity.
Only between species, not between. I mean, from the Cro-Magnon to the Homo sapien.
Because they are dead, yes.
I mean,
Hmm.
yes, but
you
within the
can
Homo
measure,
sapiens
you can
itself.
measure brain size, you can measure skull size, you can do many things
No,
like
but
that.
within the human Homo sapiens itself, a progression has not been mapped. We have only mapped it between jumps of species.
We are mapping it very carefully in the last century.
It's not been done yet.
It is being done. It is a work in progress.
Is it true 80% of a brain develops like when you are up to like 5 years old and after that you become too rigid about like
25.
Is it 25 or is it like
The
the maximum?
developmental stage goes on till 25.
I think it's much lower than that. Like whatever you pick up from your immediate environment is till the age of 5 or something.
No,
After that,
I think it might be like your physical brain develops.
So maybe there might come a time where the complexity of life might increase so much that you're actually need to use 100% of your brain.
Yeah.
So right now you're like 5%, then no 10%, maybe you're like 12%.
Yeah, when we are intergalactic crusaders,
then your like brain will be like this super active thing which
See,
kind of
yes.
we radiate, and that's when we.
Because that's what goes back to actually what she was saying in the context of this conversation.
But also
When
goes
you
back
look
to
at
what I was
science-
saying.
So
When you
it's,
look at science fiction, actually it always proves inadequate because you feel like they're intergalactic, yet how are they functioning with this way of thinking that is true to us now? You know, that's which is what he's saying. That actually when you are saying when you're intergalactic, then actually
We'll radiate emotion.
No, I don't think
I don't
so.
think so at all.
I think
emotion, okay. So emotion
Okay,
is
so how does one define emotion?
okay.
Let's try that.
Emotion is a shorthand for dealing with logically expensive, laborious, and painful processes of dealing with situations. Emotions are just shorthand. So at one point when we'll radiate emotions, we'll be able to conduct transactions at a speed that you won't even need to use language.
I think what you're describing is also like written off in sort of this like idea of singularity, right? And this notion that like
they're two opposite things.
No,
Singularity talks about the machine developing the capacity to.
Technological singularity is merging of the man and machine.
Yeah.
So they are both equal partners in the final creative act. So according to one theory, the idea of intergalactic travel is irrational because the weight of the human, which is unnecessary, is too much to support like space flight with our current modes of view. So the most logical thing that will happen is if we do reach a technological singularity, we will upload copies of ourselves and then send that small drive into space for intergalactic travel. In which case it interacts with patterns as data merging with data.
No, but I mean, what Ray Kurzweil and all these guys have been working on in terms of the capacity to download the human into a machine is never going to happen.
Yeah, it's one perspective and it will probably fail, right?
No, the idea of the human as being separate from the body is totally nonsense.
What?
I mean, anyone who has grown up in India in a certain way.
Exotifying India a lot of this conversation.
No, sorry. I mean, it's not exotifying. It's just
How?
it's just one perspective that has its roots in one of our philosophical systems, that is Advaita, which refuses to believe in a dual, which refuses to believe in a split between body and mind. And it is about India because it originated here. If you talk about Greek thought, you talk about Greeks. I mean,
fine. So like I was mentioning more about your reference to chaos all the time, like the Indian kind of social construct of chaos, right?
Which comes from our capacity to develop, like, I mean, a lot of things about this space are about this space. I mean, about every space is about every, I mean.
Yeah, so I think
I'm not saying Indians are better than Pakistanis. I'm not saying.
Suggesting you said that also there. So I think the question right now is, fine, there's one Advaita logic to the world. Does it have to be the only logic? I don't think so.
No. It's not the only thing, but yeah.
Like I don't particularly buy the idea of the human not existing without the body.
You don't.
No. Sorry. The idea of the person not existing without the body, like the mind and body are the same, and without one, the other dies. I don't think so.
Yeah, because unless we agree on this monoist framework, non-duality, unless we agree on non-duality, I don't think we can ever talk about the same thing. Because non-duality is a fundamental aspect of a way of decoding experience, which is one layer of commonality, which has
but
one layer of
it's not
commonality.
sort of formal lens, right?
No, yeah, it's a very.
If you're looking at a situation or like a topic from a post-planetary lens, how can you stick to such a like planetary thing?
It's not planetary. I mean,
It is kind of planetary.
how?
Non-dual is a concept we have
It's
created.
cosmic. I mean, non-duality looks at the entirety of consciousness and cosmos and the universe as one entity. Non-duality is not just about the body and mind. It's about everything. So it talks about the impossibility of death and the impossibility of birth because nothing ever happened.
Yeah, that is like matter never changes, right? It's like you need to.
It's about entropy. It's talking about. Talking at a scale of experience. At a certain scale, nothing ever happens.
Yeah, because the chaos is constant, so it creates a miasma of peace.
Me, I wouldn't reduce Advaita. I mean, that won't be a good start to a day. I think Advaita is made for a longer more vigorous, more aggressive discussions, and we can break a few bottles and
No, I think
no.
I mean, certainly I
Emotional
would
threats.
say that, I mean, I think it's dangerous to kind of prioritize and, bubble up emotions. I think it's very dangerous to do that.
What?
Because because I believe, just like this morning you were saying why isn't the judicial system using Indian philosophy as its basis? And my answer to you was because then everybody will get away with everything,
But-
and you agreed with me.
Yeah.
And this is the same.
No,
Talk
but
about
if they do,
emotion
if
and
everyone
based on-
does, no. So okay, if everyone does get away with everything, for example,
Yes.
and if we don't have a sense of justice and a sense of, basically a sense of justice and penance and all of those things which are the elements of law, would we lose that much?
So like you're basically asking if hierarchy will function.
boil down to survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not necessarily. I
And in
mean,
that way, yes, we would go down to some animalistic or return.
no, Advaita, for example, really will never an Advaitic thought will never agree to zoom into the perspective of justice, because justice is very much about holding on to the here and now and holding on to a certain construct of your identity, which at some scale can be negated and said, who are you? So, you can say that injustice was done to me, but who are you? Who was it done to? And you can, that loop of, that construct of thought can go to a level that, we don't really know what we're talking about. And that is a level of organic breakdown of the thought, which I think is sustainable. I mean, beyond the point.
But where is there this got for you to say that you think that it is sustainable? Does it need to have some evidence, and where is it sustainable?
Yeah.
I mean, you've also referred to sort of animalistic past, and it.
Of course, it's not
sustains
sustainable.
itself within a very clear structure over there.
Yeah.
Everything is sustained within very clear structures of.
No, I mean, it's also not sustainable because an Advaitic thought will also look at justice and the legal system in a way that, this is the way these are the rules of the game. So you're living as a social animal, and the rules of the game have been defined in the system of law. And this is also, so that is also kind of not worth talking about, and this is also not for.
No, so one of the lawyers said to me that she prefers the role as opposed to being a lawyer in court in this way, in an oppositional way. She said what's more interesting is to be a mediator, because it has that framework has the capacity to negotiate within what people feel. So two people can come and somebody said, well, I felt angry because he said something to me, right? Within that framework, it's outside the framework of the law, simply because one accommodates for feeling, and so it is about a resolution can be reached by one person saying that one person agrees to say sorry to the other, and the other person agrees to take it. So maybe I think that's a more interesting thing to think about in a way, because that means, so what does that mean vis-a-vis emotion?
So, in a court of law, can you ever ask why? So I'm a criminal. I can, and I'm saying that, I was coming back home late and I just saw that guy and I shot him. And if the question the lawyer asks, but why? And I'll say that, oh, but I thought I was at risk.
Felt I was being threatened.
Yeah, so you'll say that, but why? Because across centuries of training, I've been trained to see dark figures coming towards me with a pointed object as a sign of danger. But why? And so, that will basically reach a point where you cannot diagnose the cause. You can only punish the action. You cannot say
What
that.
would that mean? Punish the action.
I mean, that will mean whatever. If you need to hang me, hang me. But I mean, you can't say that. You can't say that